Shana Tova, everyone. Welcome to this new year. This morning, I wanted us to begin by talking about the way that a flame dances, the way that it moves, because today, I imagine, with all that we are doing, a Torah service, sharing a haftarah, a sermon, our prayers, the beautiful music, the pictures you will see. There are so many parts to our service this morning, including the sound of the shofar, that we dance like a candle will move. I imagine some of you will sit through the entirety of our service and soak it all in, and some of you will take breaks. Some of you might go for a hike. Some of you may take a schluff, a nap. Today we will dance like candles, and lighting our candles will connect us to each other as we begin this service. But we can think of the candle with an additional thought too. As we think of the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who we know passed yesterday, just before Rosh Hashanah. She danced like a candle a little differently, perhaps more like a boxer sometimes, fighting a fight here and a fight there. And so we bring some of her strength and our awe of the work she did. So much of that work for justice, work that the Jewish community had fought for by her side. And so I want to share a prayer from our Shabbat prayer book in honor of her, in honor of the strength we bring into this day. As we not only mourn her, but we absorb her grit and her strength and her optimism for how great the future can be. It is exactly what we do when we hear the shofar and when we start a new year in our tradition. In her honor, may we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved, each of us, for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech. May we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. We invite you now to make your candles dance. Cantor Kathy will lead us in the words of Psalm 97, and then we are honored to invite Jerry Sood and Angela Ellison to start this New Year day with a prayer reminding us that we, like candles, are as dynamic as the most complex systems in our scientific world. We too are fighters. We too will move from place to place, bringing light into our world. Please find your candle and light it with us as we hear the words of Or Zarua La Tzadik. May light be sown for the righteous.
My Lord is not a shepherd, and I am not his sheep. No monarch greedy for my praise is worthy of my prayers. Oneness that exploded into cosmos, spun the double helix over eons of evolution, made all things beautiful in their time. Give me intellect and initiative to envision oneness.
A single chain of life, a single human family, and myself one part, responsible and responsive, member of a people who dreamed of oneness, worked and suffered for its sake, and still lives in service to that unity. This I honor, this I hold sacred.
Yikadal, v'yikadash merabah. Amen. Le'amad divrei chirutei, v'yamlich machutei. V'chayechon, u'v'yamechon, u'v'chayedecha beit Yisrael. V'gala u'bizman kariv, v'imeru amen. V'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitador, v'yitale, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesh abarichu. La'elah, u'la'elah, min kol bechata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata.
Already, we've been receiving pictures of people lighting their candles. Normally, in Judaism, we only light our candles in the evening. This year, given our circumstances, we're bringing light to our morning services as well. Typically, during the morning service, we simply turn towards the sun. But now, we have added lights. As we see the candles in each other's homes, we share this prayer usually intended to look outside, but now for us, to bring light from wherever we are. In love, you bring light to the earth and its creatures, God. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Awestruck by the universe and the work of your hands, let all life bless you and praise you and celebrate the beauty of your lights. Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, may you shine a new light upon us. V'niz kechu lanu mehera le'oro, and may we soon be privileged to share in that light with each other. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer Hama'orot, blessed are we, for the ability to bring light into this world. Page 148 in our prayer books. Bring us in peace from the four corners of the earth, God. Lead us with upright pride to the land that is ours. For you are a God of miracles and wonders. From all the peoples of the earth, you sought us out and brought us near to your great enduring truth. So with love, we acknowledge and proclaim that you are one. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. We thank you, God, for choosing us to be a people who embrace love, for choosing us to be the people Israel with pride. The words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kivon L'olam Va'ed. Please be seated and join me in chanting the Via Havta. Via Havta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom elevavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'leptecha v'derech uv'shochbecha v'kumecha Ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot b'neinecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Laman tiskaru va'asitem ekol mitzvotai, v'tem kedoshim lelohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher otzeiti etchem eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem.
I love this prayer on page 161 in our Machzor. So for those of you who maybe were a little late because the commute from your kitchen to the living room took longer than you thought, grab your Machzor, open your iPad to the flip book. However you're following our prayers this morning, look at page 161. The prayer at the bottom of the page is written to look like the very section of Torah we are about to share in song, the splitting of the sea, Mi Chamocha. In the Torah, the words are spread out to look like waves, and so too in this part of the book, in our prayer book. Most importantly, it reminds us that we crossed that sea as we do every journey with other people who joined with us, people who held us up. It's a great honor this morning that I share this reading about the people who surprise us along our way, just prior to inviting Joe Gardner, who just finished his Beit Din and formally joined the Jewish people last week, as he will then share our most personal prayer and invite us into our Amidah. Joe, we are thrilled that you continue to be by our side, that you have linked your journey with that of the Israelite people. For all the people who march along our side as we know them, or perhaps as we come to know them, may they help us find a sense of freedom and encouragement and optimism for the future. Page 161. The Israelites walked into the Reed Sea 1 foot at a time. What were they thinking about as the water rose up their legs, chilling their hearts, advancing toward their open mouths? We continue to walk, here and now, 1 foot at a time. On our better days, forward. Alone, I cannot reach the far shore without drowning. Somehow, I don't go under. The person to my right holds me up. Something I cannot see holds him up. Blessed is the source of help, so often unexpected, as we step forward, knowing the sea is vast. The words of Mi Chamocha, followed by a prayer from Joe Gardner.
Mi Chamocha b'arim Adonai, Mi Chamocha ne'enar b'kodesh, Orat hilot v'seferet. Shira chadasha sheberuvelim, L'shemecha safat hayam, Yachad kol Yisrael, Koma Bezrat Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shamo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch At Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
Prayer is a step on which we rise from the self we are to the self we wish to be. Prayer affirms the hope that no reality can crush, the aspiration that can never acknowledge defeat. Make every effort to pray from the heart. Even if you do not succeed, the effort is precious in the eyes of the Eternal One.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Harorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Lifnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava. Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch Shmo, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, Amen. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol atah Rav LaHoshia.
know I mentioned last night the challenge that I faced in perhaps having more than my allotted time with my children. But the truth is, as I know is true for many of us, this added time with family has been a time for us to learn more from each other, to get to know each other better, to hear each other more. And this has certainly been the case for me, often learning from my children more than I perhaps ever would have. A few weeks ago, my youngest son Ezra, who is 5, he approached me and said, "Dad, I want to ask you something, but you cannot say yeah or okay. Because when you say yeah or okay, I know you're not really listening." He's 5, and he's absolutely right. In fact, the first time he said it to me, I replied, "Yeah, not really listening." The Unatana Tokef prayer that we are about to begin, it is our Jewish alarm clock. It is a chilling prayer forcing us to pay attention. It wakes us up to the ways in which we have not been alive this year. It shakes us by proclaiming that our time may be limited, that some will live and some will die. It tells us that we better pay attention to what is before us because, after all, life is fragile. We have heard this prayer more this year than before. Who will live and who will die? Who by plague and who by disease? Who by fire and who by hurricane? Today I invite you to hear it differently. Not about life and death, but about living life fully or not living life aware of what's before you. About listening to the 5-year-old and not getting lost in your phone. About seeing how much life we have within our reach, right in front of our faces, rather than how much fear distracts us from what life is really all about. The text and the commentaries on this prayer are found on pages 172 to 182 in our Machzor. Again, like a candle, I invite you to dance around these pages, to move, to read, or perhaps to close your Machzor and look at the screen. Listen to our cantor and our choir and see the images of the shofar, calling out to us to pay attention, to look at the aspects of life that we have missed this year and that we hope to embrace in the year to come. Not only things that have been closed to us because of a pandemic, but those things that we have closed off to ourselves because we weren't listening well enough. We weren't looking closely enough. We weren't taking the time to see that life is right before us, and we shouldn't miss out on it. The words of Unatana Tokef, pages 172 to 182, and the words of our cantor and our choir as we pray together.
Liv kod als vom Marrobarin, liv kod als vom Marrobadin. Kilo Jesu Berecha Badin, Badin,
Rosh Hashanah, Yikatevu, Yom Tzom Kippur, Yikatevu, Yom Tzom Kippur, Yikatevu. Rosh Hashanah. Nikateimu, Ud Yom Tzom Kippur, Yom Tzom Kippur. Nikateimu, Ud Yom Tzom Kippur, Yom Tzom Kippur. Nikateimu. Mi yanuach, umi yanuach, mi yishakit, umi yitoref, mi yishalev, umi yitzor, mi ini, umi yasher, mi yishava, umi yaruf. Uzezuva, uzevila, uzedata.
We thank everybody who has sent in their little paper flames, and we encourage those of you who haven't to please still do so, because we love seeing your names in our sanctuary. And we love reading. Some of you have written a prayer on the back, prayers that remind us what we think about this time of year, that we want to be healthy for our family, that we want to be strong and kind. The ways in which we want to be a light, I think, is what our prompt was in the window. How can we be a light to those we love and to the greater world? 2 years ago, Cantor Kathy and I heard the music to this beautiful setting of the Kedusha. And we wanted to share it last year, but unfortunately, Cantor Kathy wasn't with us for the holidays. This year, you all are not with us in the sanctuary. But you'll hear the words that we have waited 2 years to put to this music. Words about holiness, about how we stand up for each other, about how we find God in the light that each of us provides. The phone calls to those who are lonely, the people who delivered food to friends when they were sick. All the ways that we cared for each other this year are our ways of standing up for each other, lifting up on our heels as we do in this prayer like angels, showing that life can be elevated. On page 179, we read that we are to plunge into Rosh Hashanah like it is a sea of words in order that we can emerge on Yom Kippur, having been lifted out of the heaviness and sealed with a rejuvenating sense of our purpose and path in this world. As we hear these words, the words of the Kedusha found on page 184, hear the words of our prayer for what is sacred in our tradition, for what is elevated, our spirit, our sense of concern, our awareness, as we prepare for the deep dive we are to do over the next 10 days. We invite you to swim as you wish through pages 180 to 210, as we take this time for a blessing of holiness and personal reflection. For those who would like, we invite you to stand. Page 184.
נקדיש את שמך בעולם, כשמש מקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היה נביאך, זכר זזיר ואמר, קדוש, 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 ישמיענו ברחמיו להנהיגו. אני אדוני קדוש 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 אלוהים יחזינו לדור ודור. הללויה 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 הרשת שפותינו, הרשת שפותינו ירב לפרק וקרוב ונסוף. מבין ומאזין, מבין ומאזין, מביט ומקשיב, מביט ומקשיב. מבין ומאזין, מביט ומקשיב. הקול, 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 הקול תקיעותינו. ותקבל ברחמים, ברחמים וברצון. ותקבל ברחמים, ברחמים וברצון. סדר, 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 מלכויותינו. יהיו לרצון אמרי פיו, הגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי וגואלי. אדוני צורי וגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock, my Redeemer. He who
We normally approach Avinu Malkeinu with the greatest sense of awe, a moment to stand before the ark as if each of us was there. And we will do that this morning as well, but we're going to do it a little differently. I'll begin the prayer, and then I want to prepare you for a sense of awe in cuteness, and a sense of awe in personal touch, and a sense of awe in being beamed into people's homes as we invited members who have joined our congregation in these last months and years to be our representatives before the ark. And so we rise now as we turn to page 224 for this moment of awe and cuteness and connection, this moment of Avinu Malkeinu. Please rise. Avinu Malkeinu, we stand in awe, we draw close in love. Avinu Malkeinu, the power that passes through us and pervades all things. Avinu Malkeinu, the divine that is present within and among us. Avinu Malkeinu Shama Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, we speak this sacred truth aloud.
Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolenu. We speak this sacred truth aloud. Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha. We stand as one accountable for our sins.
Avinu Malkeinu.
Let us summon courage to withstand our enemies.
Avinu Malkeinu.
Let the goodness of this gift of life be engraved upon our hearts.
Avinu Malkeinu Hadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
May we taste anew the sweetness of each new day.
Avinu Malkeinu Malei Yadenu Ni Bir Hotecha.
Let us wake up the blessings already in our grasp.
Avinu Malkeinu Chaneinu ve'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu Chaneinu ve'aneinu ki ein banu masim. Asim anu tzedakah v'chesed. Asim anu tzedakah v'chesed ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu Chaneinu ve'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu Chaneinu ve'aneinu ki ein banu masim.
However small our deeds, let us see their power to heal. May we save lives through compassion, through generosity, and through justice. Please be seated. Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom. A few months ago, a picture popped up on my Facebook feed. I imagine some of you saw it as well. It was an image of a glass half filled with water. The caption read, "Any other year, some will say that the glass is half full. Some will say it is half empty. But in 2020, we look at the glass and say in this plagued year, it's probably filled with sewage." I cannot count how many times I have given up on 2020. When Amy Acton left her position, well, it was 2020. When the schools changed their plans for the third time, or the fourth time, or the 24th time, it's just 2020. The problem is, of course, that 2020 is not the problem. What this year has made evident is that the only thing that is certain in our world is uncertainty. That is nothing new. It is not linked to a particular date on our calendar, and when we turn the page from 2020 to 2021, or as we do today, from 5780 to 5781, that uncertainty is not going to go away just because a new year has begun. It did not arrive with the virus, and it will not depart with a vaccine. We live in an uncertain world. We always have, and we always will. In a few moments, Cantor Kathy will chant the very first words of the Torah, the words of the first story of creation, the declaration that day and night were separated, that animals were placed in their homes among the newly formed land, and the words that we, human beings, were made in God's image along their side. The story of creation, the book of Genesis, is in itself an answer to immense uncertainty. It is a guidebook for us, and it could not be more relevant than in this unfortunate and unpredictable year. But today, do not read it as a blueprint for what happened in the past. Do not read it as though it tells us of our history or of how science was created. Don't even read it about the beginning of creation, even though it was probably written to answer those questions, written to fill in the gaps of what people did not know looking back through history. Today, read it as a blueprint for what we do when we are uncertain, not about our past, but about our future. This is what it is a blueprint for what we can do next. One of the great Jewish philosophers of the 19th century, Hermann Cohen, himself a staunch rationalist, taught that if you want to understand human nature, then you should turn to the scientific method. But if you want to improve human nature, you have to posit God as its logical ground. In other words, if you want to know about why something happened, read history, talk to a scientist. They know the answers. But if you want to know what you should do next, what is in the future, turn to a book like Genesis, a book that begins with chaos, without order, a book that begins with overwhelming darkness and uncertainty. Bereshit bara Elohim, what did the world look like when God began creating? Tohu vavohu, we read, v'choshech al panei tahom. Everything was a waste, and darkness dominated the depths of the world. You want to know what the world looked like before the first words of Torah describe creation? It looked like a cup filled with sewage. It was a mess. The first words of Genesis are no longer our response to the uncertainty of the past. It is our response to the certainty of the future. Genesis declares wholeheartedly that the answer to an uncertain future is to get creative. Where there is darkness, add light. Where there is no life, dream of a world where seas give sustenance to plants and plants to animals. Where there is no humanity, it calls upon us, as our Talmud states, be human. And so my answer to a sewage-filled year is it is time to read Genesis the right way. Let us read it as a story about having confidence when we have no idea if we will succeed. A story about having the courage to believe in ourselves when perhaps we're uncertain of what we can do. The way to respond to uncertainty is not to eliminate it. It is to have the courage to face it. It is, as one of my favorite authors and teachers, Brene Brown, defines, it is to have faith. Faith, she says, is a place of mystery where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our uncertainty. A colleague recently shared a story with me. It's a story about a year when the world seemed to fail us. I think it's exactly that definition of faith that Brene Brown describes, a faith of courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our uncertainty. The story of a place where for 3 years the rains had failed, the crops had disappeared, the land was void of life. Things people had taken for granted were now nowhere to be seen. I imagine we could all say that about these last 6 months in one way or another, as our streets seem to be empty for some time, as the world looks so different. This happened in this unknown place. And so an elderly woman, a matriarch of the community, announces, "Only God can help us now. Let's gather and pray for rain," she said. And so the people of all faiths gathered around in the town square and began to pray, thinking that prayer was their last shot at finding rain in these years of drought. And then a little girl and her young brother, holding hands, came running up, and they were holding an umbrella, open. People started to look at them, mostly with frustration. The umbrella was distracting them from their prayers. It was poking people, and then those people were running into other people. But mostly they looked at them and they just thought, this makes no sense, for it's a drought. And so a man turned to them and said, "Why did you bring the umbrella? Can't you see there is no rain and there has not been for 3 years? That's why we're here to pray." "Yes, we know," they said. "That's why we brought this big, colorful umbrella. What we don't understand is why you are not prepared for our prayers to be answered." How many times have we come together to pray this year, to look out at the world and want it to be changed, but had no belief that it could happen? We've left our umbrellas at home. For many, including some of our Jewish friends, faith is about believing in answers to impossible questions. Where will I go when I die? What was life like before the first person was born? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Let religion tell me the answers to these impossible questions. I prefer Dr. Brown's definition. Faith is not about getting answers, it's about getting courageous. It's about having the courage to know that we can face whatever is uncertain in this world today or tomorrow or next month because we brought our umbrella, because we believe that there is enough good, enough God in this world to make it rain eventually, and that we have the strength to wait for that moment. When the pandemic started, I asked a number of you a question we often think about on days like today. If God spoke to you, what would you hope God would say? Without quoting a chapter or verse, many of you responded with the words of our Torah portion this morning. I just want God to tell me that it is all going to be okay. Vayar ki tov, we read in a few moments. I just want to know that the people I care about will be healthy, that my kids will have their health and perhaps health care. I want to know that I will have enough money to visit those I love and provide for those who live with me, and that they will be happy, that I will be happy. Vayar ki tov, just tell me, God, that it will all be good. So often, that's all we really want to hear. And yet, we are seemingly better at counting what is lacking than what is present, at seeing what is bad and not what could be good. It is what Dr. Brown calls a culture of scarcity. We count what is lacking, we count what is failing, what has disappointed us, and what goes wrong. Unlike the book of Genesis, we have fallen victim to a belief that there is not enough in this world for all of us to succeed. Overwhelmed with uncertainty, we start to believe that every scenario is limited, that some of us will win and some will not, that some of us will have wealth and some will not, that some of us will have access to health care, but that there are not enough doctors, enough nurses, enough PPE, or enough money for all of us to be okay. So I better be on that good side. I better take some for myself because I know there's not enough. We think that some of us will have access to a good education, and we've accepted that some just will not. But that is not what Genesis declares was God's perspective. God looked at all of creation and said, Vayar ki tov, it is good. It is God as entrepreneur, not God as the world's quality and control engineer. To read the words of Genesis today is to believe that we must approach uncertainty with an entrepreneurial mentality, a mentality that believes there is more to the world than we can see, and that we have the ability to create it. Not that some will be winners and others will inevitably lose, but rather that there are enough resources in this world for all of creation to be at least good. And so the story of creation is not a story of scarcity, it's a story of abundance. And here abundance is not excess, it's simply the belief that there is enough, that I am enough, that we have enough money, enough resources, enough strength, enough vision to build the world the way it should be. It is the belief that we do not need to settle because the world is not scarce. The world, in fact, is abundant. But this isn't how we think. Too often we think, as author Lynn Twist writes, that when we wake up, we start with a scarcity perspective. She writes, have you ever woken up and said to yourself, I didn't get enough. I didn't get enough sleep. Oh, I didn't get enough exercise. I don't have enough time today. Oh, I don't have enough money or enough strength. This is not how entrepreneurs think. They don't worry about what they don't have. They worry about what they could have. David Rogier is the co-founder of a website some of you may be familiar with. I became familiar with it 2 years ago when a friend invited me to join him on Masterclass. Masterclass hires the most skilled and usually most famous leaders in an industry to teach classes in their field online. For a small fee, anyone can sign up and anyone can learn how to play basketball from LeBron James or how to direct a movie from Ron Howard. Masterclass has been largely successful. It is, at its core, an abundant response to a scarcity mentality. Rogier's grandmother fled Nazi Europe when she was a child and immigrated to the United States. She experienced a scarcity mentality firsthand. After working in factories for years, she applied to medical schools because she was bright, and she was rejected by the dozen. One dean flat out told her that she had 3 strikes against her. He said, you are a woman, you are Jewish, and you are an immigrant. For this reason, she always taught her grandson that an education was something that could never be taken away from you. Like her, Rogier is smart. He received his MBA from Stanford and was hired by a venture capital fund, and I'm sure he made plenty of money. But a year later, thinking of his grandmother, he quit his job because he believes in abundance. When asked what he was going to do, he answered, I'm going to build something. And he did. He started the company under the name Yonka Industries, named for his grandmother. And now anyone with $80 and an internet connection has access to the most elite teachers in their field. This is what it means to read Genesis this year. It's to look out at a world that loves scarcity and to reply with faith and abundance. It's not to wake up and say, I did not get enough. It is, as my teacher and colleague, Rabbi Paul Kipnis, shared in an affirmation, to wake up this year and say, we are enough. As he wrote, when you feel like you are failing at everything you are doing, parenting and grandparenting, partnering, working, say to yourself, I am enough. When you do the best you can with the best of intentions and your kid, your spouse, your boss, your friend still isn't satisfied, say to yourself with an attitude of abundance, I am enough. When it feels like you are barely keeping your head above water, say to yourself, I am enough. When things feel like they should be so easy but they aren't, when you cannot articulate why you are so sad, or perhaps when you feel guilty because you are so happy, speak with an attitude of abundance and tell yourself that you, in fact, are enough. An attitude of abundance is not only about me being enough, it is about us being enough. It is about there being enough in the world for us to make it good. If there is anything we have seen in the last 6 months, is that we do have enough to live abundantly. We have enough money to give the unemployed an extra $600 a week so they can make their rent. We have enough factories and innovative minds to turn distilleries for vodka into manufacturing plants to make medical supplies for our hospitals. There's enough food for everyone to eat, and there are enough people with enough sense to envision a world where anyone and everyone has an equal opportunity to education, to health care, to wealth, to opportunities that we cannot imagine. The entrepreneur looks at a glass that is half full of water and does not look at the water that is there, its color or its weight. An entrepreneur, like God in Genesis, looks at the space that is left and says, "Look at the potential." And she believes that there is enough in this world, vayar ki tov, to make it good, to at least make it okay. If you come to the synagogue because you want answers, especially easy, certain, and stress-relieving answers to all the things we do not know about our world, I will tell you that you've come to the wrong place. What we offer, what our tradition offers, is not a story about how the world was created. It offers us a story about what it takes to create in the midst of darkness and uncertainty. It offers us a story of abundance when the world seems scarce. The response to uncertainty is not to be certain. The response to uncertainty is faith. A faith that reminds us that we have the courage to overcome whatever comes next. A faith that gives us the confidence to know we are enough. The faith of the entrepreneurial spirit of abundance. Faith to know that there is enough goodness to go around to everyone, that we should bring our umbrella because times are going to change. May 5781 be a good year, a new year, a year of creativity and a year of overflowing faith, that we will rebuild this world to be a place of abundance once again, and we will then say, Vayar ki tov, it is good, Shana Tova. Let us turn now to those very words, the words of Genesis, the abundant words of our Torah. As we begin our Torah service, we return to our prayer books. We'll begin on page 228 and 229. This morning, Cantor Kathy will be sharing the first 4 days of creation in the book of Breshit, in the book of Genesis, as we're honored to have Livia and Philkatus to bless our Torah before the reading, and Shelley and Larry Kay to bless our Torah after the reading. Please rise as we open our ark and prepare for the abundant words of the book of Genesis.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai v'ein kamasecha malachutecha malachut kol olamim umemshatecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach, Adonai malach, le'olam va'id. Adonai oz le'amo yitin, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim etiv avertzot ha'etzion, Tibnei chamot Yerushalayim, Tibnei chamot Yerushalayim. Ki v'cha levad batanu, melech Aran v'nisa, Adon Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'nora Shemo. בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה, והמתנשא לכל רוש.
Turn now to invite Livia and Philcatus to bless our Torah portion with the opening blessing.
Baruch hu Adonai Hamvarach, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, V'natan Lanu Et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz, v'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu, v'choshech al panei tahom, v'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. Vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or, vayar Elohim et haor ki tov, vayavdil Elohim ben haor uben chachoshech, vayikra Elohim leor yom v'lechoshech hara laila, vayehi erev vayehi voker yom echad. Vayomer Elohim yehi rakia betoch hamayim, vayehi mavdil ben mayim lamayim. Vayash Elohim et harakia, vayavdil ben hamayim asher mitachat larakia, uvein hamayim asher me'al larakia, vayehi chen. Vayikra Elohim larakia shamayim, vayehi erev vayehi voker yom sheni. Vayomer Elohim yikavu hamayim mitachat hashamayim el mekom echad, v'tera'ei hayabasha vayehi chen. Vayikra Elohim vayabasha eretz, Umikvei hamayim karayamim, vayar Elohim ki tov. Vayomer Elohim tache haaretz deshe, esev masriya zera et pari, ose pari lemino, asher zaravo al haaretz vayichi chen. V'totze haaretz deshe esev mazriya zera leminehu, va'etz ose pari asher zaravo laminehu, vayar Elohim ki tov. Vayhi erev vayhi voker yom shlishi. Vayomer Elohim yehi me'orot birkia hashamayim, lehavdil ben hayom uben halayla, v'hayu le'otot ul mo'adim ul yamim v'shanim. V'hayu le'marot birkia hashamayim, le'ha'ir al ha'aretz vayihi chen. Vayas Elohim et shnei hamarot gedolim, et ha'maor gadol lamemshelet hayom, ve'et ha'maor v'hakaton lamemshelet halayla, ve'et ha'kochavim. Vayitein otam Elohim birkia hashamayim, l'ha'ir al ha'aretz, ולמשול ביום ובלילה, ולהבדיל בין האור ובין החושך, ויקרא אלוהים כי טוב, ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום רביעי.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natav b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
With our Torah out, we take this moment to think about those who are in need of healing. But over the last few years, we've inserted this prayer found on page 232 in our prayer books. Before we offer words of strength to those who we know are suffering in this moment, we start with a moment of gratitude for those who have been healed, for those who have been through a struggle this year, a life-threatening illness, and found that medicine was able to bring them back to a fuller life, or perhaps those who just went through a struggle of their own conscience and emotions, felt that life was not full for them, and now have done the work they needed to do to be their fullest selves. If you are one of these people, for any reason, or if someone in your family is one of these people who has come through their illness, who has been scared this last year, and now feels whole, as we share this prayer, we invite you to stand, acknowledging the goodness that has come your way and ours. A teaching of our sages. In the presence of the sacred scroll, we give thanks for the blessings in our lives. Rav Judah said, in the name of Rav, who should offer thanksgiving? Those who have completed an arduous voyage, those who have recovered from an illness or injury, and prisoners who have been set free. In the midst of the congregation, we honor those who have come through times of challenge, difficulty, or danger. Today we celebrate their survival. Together we give thanks for the resilience of the body, for the strength of the human spirit, for the precious gift of life, experienced with new intensity when life has been at risk. For all those who have been strengthened, we offer some of that strength to those who we know look forward to that day when that prayer applies to them. And so we invite you to share the names of those who you know are ill. If you're joining us on Facebook and want to drop a name into the chat, we invite you to do that. If you would like to say a name aloud in your own home, we encourage you to do that as well as we share the words of Misha Berach, our prayer for healing.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with Refuah Shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We invite you to rise now as we lift and dress our Torah, having shared our story of abundance and shared some of that abundance with those who are in need of it most. Please rise as we see the scroll ourselves.
Vizot HaTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael, al pi Adonai meyad Moshe. La 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 la
We invite now Paula Levin to be our Haftarah reader this morning. She is sharing the words of Jeremiah chapter 31. It is a story of redemption for our people. Having been separated from each other, they return to the comforts of their family once again. So often we've experienced this year as children have come home from school, as parents have come to live with us, as we have cared for each other. We have lived parts of this story, this time told by the voice of Paula Levin, as a promise for the goodness that is to come. Pages 255 and 256 in the Machzor. First, Cantor Kathy will lead us in the blessing, and then we'll turn to Paula to lead us in the story.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza v'yirehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uveMoshe avdo uveYisrael amo uvinviei ha'emet v'tzedek.
For thus said the Lord, cry out in joy for Jacob. Shout at the crossroads of the nations. Sing aloud in praise and say, save, O Lord, your people, the remnant of Israel. I will bring them in from the northland, gather them from the ends of the earth, the blind and the lame among them, those with child and those in labor. In a vast throng they shall return here. They shall come with weeping, and with compassion I will guide them. I will lead them to streams of water, by a level road where they will not stumble, for I am ever a father to Israel. Ephraim is my firstborn. Hear the word of the Lord, O nations, and tell it in the isles afar. Say, he who scattered Israel will gather them and will guard them as a shepherd his flock. For the Lord will ransom Jacob, return him from one too strong for him. They shall come and shout on the heights of Zion, radiant over the bounty of the Lord, over new grain and wine and oil, and over sheep and cattle. They shall fare like a watered garden. They shall never languish again. Then shall maidens dance gaily, young men and old alike. I will turn their mourning to joy. I will comfort them and cheer them in their grief. I will give the priests their fill of fatness, and my people shall enjoy my full bounty, declares the Lord.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'neman ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mekayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh ve'al yom ha'zikaron hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lechavod ultiparet. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevarchim otach Yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed u'devarcha emet v'kayam la'ad. Baruch atah Adonai melech al kol ha'aretz mekadesh hashabat v'Yisrael v'yom hazikaron.
Please rise as we return the Torah to the Ark.
Etz chaim hi lemachazikima v'tomecha meushar derachiha darchei
We prepare now for the sound of the shofar, a sound familiar to this time of year, and yet we will hear it, see it in a way in which we've never seen it before. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol teruah amo Yisrael barachamim. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, the true voice of your people Israel.
Today, the world is born anew. This day, the whole of creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in the way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice, grace, and holiness.
Areshet sifatenu, ye'erev lefanecha, el ram v'nisa, mevin umazin mabit umakshiv, l'chol tikatenu, utkabel barachamim uvratzon seder, shofrotenu.
Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High.
You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out Tekiah, lovingly, favorably receive our prayers of shofarat.
We turn now to page 286. As we share the words of Aleinu, we invite you to rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tit gedulah l'yotzer b'reishit, shelo asanu keyoyeh haratot, v'lo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahim, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated. We turn our thoughts now to those that we've lost. There are stars up above. So far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. So it is with the people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways that we remember. We remember Penny Frank Dubeck and Sarah Snyder, whom we've lost in this past month. And we remember Jeffrey Stephen Barris, Jerry Cohen, Sue Corbett, Jerome Farron, Rose Farron, Sidel Friedman, Stella Glasman, Rose Kantrovitz, Rena J. Klossner, Benjamin Levin, Gerald Marcus, Anna Nyman, Beatrice Peltzman, Wilma Roller, Raymond Russell, Lawrence Schwartz, Herbert D. Shaw, Robert Wallman, Herbert Yabroff, Bernice Zimmerman, and Ernest Zimmerman. As we turn to the words of Mourner's Kaddish, we remember all of those whom we've lost and loved, especially at this season and on Shabbat. Page 292, we invite you to rise if you would like and share in these words. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. B'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ol me'almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yithalal. Shemei dekudasha b'richu. Le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechamata. D'amiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace upon all who mourn, all who are bereaved, as you are a source of comfort, and we say, Amen. A couple brief announcements. First, I've neglected to mention that the pictures that you saw during today's service, some were the pictures of the shofar, were pictures of our shofar in our building, which Noah Fromson put together, I believe, with some help from Kylie. And the other pictures of nature are from our small groups, our photography small groups, many from the work of Harvey Krieger. It's been augmenting our service, something that allows us to look through our television and our computer screens out into the world and hopefully find a sense of awe there as well. This afternoon, 2 p.m., we have apple picking at Bowman Orchards. Please, if you can, email Lauren Trexler at lauren.trexler@templeisraelakron.org. We also will have tomorrow, there will be an email with 2 videos. One is of a tashlich service that you can do on your own, and the second is of a memorial service that Kathy and I put together at Rose Hill, and we encourage you to utilize those as we continue to honor and celebrate the holidays, thinking of our loved ones and reflecting on what sins we want to cast away this year. Please give to the food bank. Many of you already have. As we are not walking into the building this year to get our brown bags to remind us, we want to remind you to go on the website, the Temple website, the Akron Food Bank website, the Facebook page, anywhere we can put it. We're reminding you to try to donate to the Akron Canton Food Bank. And we want to thank all of the people who helped us with services. There will be a list naming the many dozens of people who had a hand in helping us this year. It's always the case that we get lots of help and from wonderful musicians, from our choir, from our volunteers, from people who supported us with funds at Temple, and from we want to offer a special thank you to all of you who have already given and I believe can still give. Yes, to the even though I'm here, I'm not here fully. And so you can continue as we try to raise money this year in all sorts of new ways to keep our synagogue doing the things that we do to serve this community. We thank all of the many people who have already given in response to our emails to find me. So I've mostly been found, but we won't turn you away. So please continue to look at your emails, and we really are appreciative of all those who've already given. We will have a drive-in Ne'ilah service on Monday, September 21st. There will be an email coming out, and you will reserve a spot as we have for previous drive-in services. It'll be much like our Slichot service, a brief service with Havdalah to close out our High Holy Days. We hope that you will join us. We pray that there will be great weather, and we hope that you'll be able to be there. And please reserve your spot so that we can make sure that we are organized and ready for that moment. September 28th, I'm sorry. We will close our service now. Page 294, we invite you to rise once again as we share this blessing for this new year, followed by the words of the Shana Tova. May it be a good year for all of us. Strengthen us on this day. Bless us today. Lift up our lives on this day. Grant us goodness today. Inscribe us for a good life on this day, and hear our heartfelt words. On this day, God, receive our prayers with love. Fortify our best intentions. May we go forth today to do your righteous work, as we all say. Amen.
L'shana tova tikatevu, l'shana tova tikatevu, tikatevu, v'tikatemu. Shana tova.